Note to the listeners, this will be in the most awful Dutch accent ever.
Yes, we promise.
So welcome at the Primer. This is Just a Model, the podcast on the interstitial of making technology, media, design, public policy, progress in general. I'm Peet, Sneekes, speculative strategist and fan of the human behavior. And I'm joined by Ron Kersic, technology philosopher and literary maven. This podcast we will be asking questions about stories where we feel like people don't touch upon the true narrative, or the cause, or the why, or the reason why the thing is like it is. And this is for you, the dear listener and viewer. This is a value for value podcast. That means if you experience value from this podcast, like information, entertainment, a good dad joke, or whatever you like, you may decide to return that value through time, talent, and treasure. And if you'd like more details about that, just check the website and you'll find more information. So this is the Primer, Ron.
Yes.
And we will be talking in awful Dutch accents.
Yeah.
This is our new primary feature. And let's talk about the topic, because I think you already touched upon an interesting topic while we prepared this podcast.
Yeah.
And I think you talked something about that was revealed at CES, right?
Yes.
At the Consumer Electronics
There
Expo?
It is. Yeah.
No, CES. What's the S? What?
I have no idea. Show. It has to
Show.
be a show.
It's a show.
It's
of
in
course.
Las Vegas.
It's American.
It's Las Vegas, so it is a show.
Yeah.
It's the. Yeah, I mean, before we get to that one, I think it's the. There's an interesting thing in my life, right? I talk to people who used to be my colleagues, and I never talk to them when they were my colleague, right?
Right,
So
that's the dynamic we're having over
that's
here.
the dynamic
Yeah.
we're having over the year, and
I think we crossed paths perhaps one or twice.
Once.
Oh, okay.
Once in real life. Yes, I made a
Your
mental
vivid
note.
memories of my colliding with me.
Yeah, it's the and I tend to catch up with people after we both leave the company, right? So, and that's how we got together finally.
Yeah,
And,
true.
and we kept chatting about stuff, right?
Yeah.
The interstitium. We didn't even have that word back then, and we should get to that one. At some point.
Let's elaborate a little bit about that, because because we never talk about, when we talk, it's not about the thing itself.
No.
We wonder about why is this thing and what are the connecting mechanics, if you will, or the networks. How is this supported in any way?
The in between stuff.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And the magic is always in the in between stuff.
And that's the interstitial, according to you.
So I read this paper, and actually a scientific paper, and it's about collagen. You know, the stuff in your skin.
Yeah.
And typically it's studied, well, after the fact, when somebody died and the collagen is taken out, and then of course the collagen is dead. So you have this lump of material, and that's it.
Huh.
And that's how collagen was perceived.
As stuff in between.
Well, as dead stuff.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But of course, in a living body,
It's
and I think
maintained and it grows or
it's a living
dissipates.
thing. And we're literally covered in it, right? We're literally shielded by this living system.
Yeah.
And I was so flabbergasted by the fact that this actually is a scientific discovery of sorts.
Oh, so nobody asked the question.
That's it.
Huh.
And I thought this phrase, interstitium, the thing in between, right?
Yeah.
The system in between, the life in between. I thought that actually is a nice summary of the discussions we had in various coffee shops, scaring away the various patrons in the coffee shop. And I thought, well,
I'm not sure if people were scared away, but I hope not.
they were surprised about the energy and the hand.
Oh, of course, we are very...
And the hand waving, I typically do. So this is how we got there.
Yeah.
And I think we both responded to this. It's classified as a gadget at CES, and that's the Rabbit R1.
Yes. It was a very interesting invention, because I saw this presentation of a person that with at least as worse accent as we have, and he showed this thing and tried to explain what it did.
Yeah.
And to me, it was at first I thought I was in love with the tangibility of it.
Yeah.
I really like, or I wonder about why do we want to make everything digital
Yeah.
when it's obvious that there should be like an aspect of the tangibility of something.
Yeah.
And specifically when you operate, for example, voice interfaces, you call upon them. But most of the times when we call upon somebody,
Yeah.
we change our body, right? It's like I direct myself towards you, I touch you, for example, and then we start the conversation, or something happens that
Yeah.
you acknowledge me from, hey, we're starting this exchange of words.
Yeah.
And this is something that I really liked about the Rabbit or the R1,
Yeah.
because I think the Rabbit is like the company
It's
name,
the company,
right?
and the R1 is the device name, and you're supposed to write the R in small caps. So it's not a capital R, it's
I really hate that now.
I think it's kind of cool.
People trying to dictate something about.
Yeah.
It's like, you know how words work? Well, not in this case.
Yeah, you're holding it wrong, right? That,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
kind of thing.
Yeah. But I really like the tangibility of it. And haphazardly, or not coincidentally, I have this other product of the same designers.
Yeah.
And let's see if I can show it up on the screen. I think this is it. So now it's shut off, so you probably can't see that much. I think it's just a time indication at the moment. And this is made by Teenage Engineering, or designed by Teenage Engineering. So they do industrial design, amongst other things, but also make design instruments like synthesizers, recorders, all kinds of things, including an IKEA speaker, which is interesting as well.
Yeah, and very desirable things.
Very desirable
It's
things.
things I just need to have.
Yeah. And the trick they seem to succeed in is actually making stuff in collaboration with other parties that actually turn out pretty good.
Yeah.
So this one is made with, I think, Panic Software, which is very renowned on their tangibility and their squishy design. And I really like how things work, and that you can interact with an interface in a different way than you would expect most of the times.
Yeah, and it always has this playfulness to it. I mean, this is playful. I mean, just look the way you actually now.
I'm caressing it.
Yes. So the first thing that drew me to this rabbit, and we should explain what it is.
Yeah,
right?
What is it? Let's first dive into that.
I mean, but that's the thing. The first thing I noticed is designed by Teenage Engineering.
That
was the very first thing. So this has to be good.
It is. I mean, or should be.
And I think that in itself is awesome for a boutique design outfit from Sweden.
I think you can call them that, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the power of their brand, right? And like I said, they make desirable stuff, but desire, I actually mean irrationally desirable stuff. Right?
Yeah,
they have synthesizers that are, I think, way overpriced compared to their capability, but I just want to have them. They're so playable.
There are a couple of things they make. So, for example, the speakers they made for IKEA.
Yeah.
They just look silly and very nice. There was like a real interesting step outside the borders of IKEA, which is kind of like mainstream, right? If you want working mainstream stuff, you go to IKEA. But this thing was like bright and loud, and it was a horrible speaker. But it looked very nice, and it had like Bluetooth functionality and all kinds of interesting functionalities. And similarly, or unsimilarly, the synthesizers you talked about, like, for example, the OP1, which is very, very nice. I have one. And I only have it, and I found out I'm kind of like a person that also buys things because of the interface or the ecosystem, I guess. And this is like a complete ecosystem. So it looks desirable, feels desirable, but also the interface, it all connects with each other. It's seamless. Yeah. And that's something I really appreciate. So for example, if you have a Galaxy, mobile phone, then you would have like a mobile phone that looks pretty on the outside, but on the inside is still Android, which is kind of awkward sometimes.
Yeah.
And which is like it's pretty much, it's a downer, if you open the thing and it does not what you expect from the outside.
So back to the R1, right? So
Yeah, what does the R1?
So here is a startup and managed to engage teenage engineering. So you have my attention, and of course and that's the word we're not gonna prevent happening in this podcast. An AI-enabled thing. So
right.
it uses AI. Everything seems to be using AI nowadays. And so you use that device to actually do things on your phone.
Yeah.
So for instance, in my Slack message to Peet,
Yeah.
I mentioned a video clip of Big Black. They have a song called The Model, which really fits this podcast.
Because,
right?
yeah.
So I can literally say, take that reference I put to Peet in Slack, look it up on Spotify, and send me the link.
Yeah, it's like a verbal if this then that engine.
Yeah. And the cool thing is, if this then that is very specific, right? All the thises and the that's in div, if this then that, are hard coded. Right. There needs to be a Slack plugin. And there needs to be a Spotify plugin, and there needs to be a mail plugin. Right? Very specific.
Yeah.
What they did is they trained a large action model.
What's in the name?
But they trained actually a model on user interfaces.
So the difference between the thing like an action model and a language model is basically the language model is trying to understand what you're saying and also create new speech. And they said no, we want to make the actions easy. So that's why we created like an intelligent cloud around all the actions that you can do.
I mean, we have metaphors and let's call it a language in user interfaces, right? I mean, if I for the first time I get a new app, I don't need to have a training in that app, right? I don't need to be instructed by a certified instructor.
No,
I see these little 3 lines or 3 dots. Oh, that's typically a menu, right? I can tap that menu, things happen. These things are links or actions. I can tap them, things happen.
Yeah.
I want to search for something. Oh, this icon of a looking glass, would that be the search function? Typically, yes. You tap that one, etc. Right? So there is a reoccurring languages across all the apps we're using in our phone, and that's what they trained on, right? Understanding or at least capturing.
Yeah.
How an action like get this link from Slack would actually translate in the user interface of this thing called Slack. But it's universal.
Right.
I could say take the link from Messenger. Same thing, without to be in specific Messenger. So I think as a metaphor, this is already nice.
Yeah, it actually does what you expect when you talk to a human, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Or an assistant, I think.
Yeah, and of course what we now see with AI or generative AI is that it has a mode of interaction we used to reserve exclusively for dealing with humans, right? I chat to the thing and it responds, and you can actually see a lot of how people are reacting to this technology because it is so human-like.
Yeah.
Right? So what it says must be right, because why would it lie?
Oh, interesting. So there's a because of its technology, it should be truthful.
I mean that, and
that's what we expect.
That's what we expect.
But it's weird because if a light doesn't work and we flip on the light and it doesn't work, we totally accept that, right?
Yeah, then we accept that it is broken.
Yeah.
We don't think that the light is malicious. Or that the light has a grudge against us,
or has a secret agenda.
Has a secret agenda, right? I mean, it's the and if you have an Excel spreadsheet and it says not a number of div by 0, okay, it's an error, right?
Yeah.
But in the end, if it works and you get a number, you take the number for real. And if you thought that the number would be 10 points higher, I must be wrong.
So
very few people do the calculation themselves just to
double check or whatever, and Excel. They should. People should double check specifically with the things
because it's just a model.
Oh my God, yeah. So in this case, at this moment of recording, I am very much interested in amongst others government, and government has like a really bad track record at the moment in the Netherlands. They all started working on trust and things that. Yeah. Specifically, the citizens should do, right? This is how they speak about
the
people.
Citizens, right?
Citizens. I think people in people in government really know how to other people, right? It's not big. And although you are also a citizen, when you talk from the government about other people, it's definitely a different group of people, not relatable at all.
Yeah.
But what they seem to do is they make mistakes, a lot of mistakes, specifically in using technology. And they made specifically that mistake that you just said. It's like there's no doubt that the technology gives you the right answer, because that's how we designed it.
Yeah.
And not trying to, they basically disqualify the fact that it's designed by people.
Yeah.
And used by people.
Yeah.
And double checking stuff should be like something we should work on, right?
Yeah, and what we're now learning, sometimes the hard way, is that we now have computer technology.
Yeah.
That we absolutely need to be checked and double checked and questioned, because inherently it makes things up.
Yeah, exactly.
There's not a database being queried, right? And if you ask a question, you don't get an answer. You get something that looks like how the answer would have looked like.
And it's specifically in generative AI?
Absolutely, yeah. That's the kind of AI I assume we will be talking about.
Yeah. And that's like making new things, or at least that's what it implies.
Well, it's actually... Yeah, well, it's constructing from the old things something new.
Yeah, exactly.
A phrase I really love, and it's not mine, but it's nostalgia in, nostalgia out.
Yeah.
Right? So it's trained on nostalgia, and it reproduces something from what was said before.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it isn't new. It's almost like a remix or a riff.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like the mashup all over again. I mean, we had that time in digital. In the digital world, where mashups were a thing.
It's all coming back again.
You know, it's combining a map with tweets and then filtering on it, and that's what's happening in AI as well.
Yeah.
Only the input is random shit.
Yeah.
Because it's non-discriminatory, right? The people are not looking at, or the AI is not looking, this is valuable, this isn't valuable.
No, there is no...
It's just, there's a bunch of stuff.
There is no notion of value or truth or whatever concept.
It's just statistical, I guess. Statistically, probability.
Statistically, it makes sense to put it in this order or to construct it in this way.
Statistically relevancy, I think.
Yeah. And it's amazing that it actually works in so many cases.
Yeah.
I mean,
from our perspective, of course. Right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I used to program a fair bit in my younger years.
Yeah.
I'm still recovering from that spell of my life. But it's amazing to see how well it writes code.
Oh yeah.
Without actually knowing anything about the programming language, the abstract syntax tree, semantics, syntax. It just doesn't know. It's just literally putting symbols in a certain order.
Yeah.
And that certain order turns out to be, more often than not, compilable, workable, useful, usable code.
So do you think it has its own compiler so it can check before?
No, it doesn't.
Because
sometimes you get code that doesn't compile.
Right. Oh, okay.
It's literally just putting symbols one after another based on the observed patterns. And if you have
And
if you have
these patterns are strict, right? With programming languages,
that's it.
We have a syntax
that's
and
it.
we have
that's it.
The grammar, and that's it.
Yeah, and that's what you also see, right? If you use a programming language that's quite dominant on the internet.
Yeah.
It tends to be quite correct because there is so much training material. If you have a programming language that's a bit more esoteric, it goes off the rails really quickly, really spectacularly. So that's indeed...
It's like something with
But the fact, I think it's a really important point. The fact that you can, based on existing material, that you can create something that's useful and usable, but actually without understanding the thing.
Yeah.
That is
it feels amazing. I've seen results and I've seen people actually doing that. And actually one of our former colleagues, I guess, previous colleagues.
There it is again.
Bran, he actually he does give courses. Shout out to Bran because his work is quite excellent on YouTube.
We should put a link in notes, right?
Check the show notes. It will be in there.
For sure.
Bran is
really
Bran
good.
for the win.
Yeah.
And I think he's like a Zen master. So if you would like like the little boxes with sand and where you can rake, like a Japanese person, and you can rake everything into order. That's he's like the person, the Zen master of code.
Yeah,
I feel like I really get at ease when I listen to him explaining stuff.
Yeah, me too. I actually share it with people who are non-programmers. So, Bran, if you're listening, that's the biggest compliment I could ever get. It's the But I mean, but then back to the R1 again, right? So, so that's level of fascination number 2. That they managed to train a model on how to navigate user interfaces in any app.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I saw
any existing app.
I saw the presentation. I thought it was kind of lackluster, specifically the examples that they showed.
Yeah, the examples where
I mean, book an appointment. Everything can do that.
This is almost like harking back to the beginning of mobile, right? When you had those examples.
Right. Yeah.
So the examples were rather.
It's not imaginary.
Yeah. But the description of how the technology works.
That's really neat.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I have no idea because I don't have the device yet, and it's sold out, so it will take a while before I get one.
You did order it?
I did try to order it. I'm one of those persons that needs to have something tomorrow if I order.
I thought about it, and then I thought this is just a thing. This is just a block.
Yeah.
And I really like the way you described it as in a AI powered device.
Yeah.
And I see it like the other way around. I think the true product is the AI.
Yeah, it is.
And this is just an interface.
Yeah.
It's an interface.
Yes. So that's the third layer of fascination, and that's the true layer, right? I mean, because now we are almost expecting AI to come to us in the shape of a chatbot.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But what if AI is in devices, or it just somewhere and it just
it's ethereal?
That's the word I was trying to use, and it shows up at certain points in time in a certain interface in a certain device, right? In that device, in this device. So for the very first time since the occurrence of the iPhone, I actually have a feeling that we could be progressing in finding new and significantly different form factors than the large glass rectangle. That
might be true, right? We don't have any use for the rectangle anymore.
Yeah.
Right, because we don't need to poke at the thing anymore. Yeah. I guess that's the main limit.
Yeah, and there is this concept, I think it's from the 1990s, from Mark Weiser. It's called calm technology.
Right.
And people that know me know that I have this thing for calm technology. I even say it in a calm way.
Right. And it's the ASMR of technology.
Oh, the ASMR of. I'm going to use that one. That is really good. And this feels like in that direction, right? So the technology pops up when it's needed.
Right.
And then it goes back into the background again, instead of being front and center, literally in your face.
There is a term. Ambient technology.
Ambient technology, yeah.
That's what you just described.
Same thing, yeah.
It being like not per se like little servants popping up, but before you actually express the need for something, it will happen. I guess that's kind of like that. Yeah, and it's everywhere, right?
It's everywhere.
It doesn't and it expresses in the way that is useful for you. So, for example, if you think, "Oh boy, I'm tired," and before you're saying it, a chair will be there, for example.
Yeah.
But if you say, "Oh, I'm feeling lonely," there will be a conversation, like something. "Hey, how are things going? Let's meet up with your mother or your kids or whatever kind of thing."
Yeah.
So I actually like that idea of ambient intelligence, but I'm also thinking, doesn't that make us really schizophrenic, because it's very artificial. So doesn't that make us very, oh boy, the intelligence is everywhere. It's listening, it's deciding, it's shaping me.
Yeah.
It's shaping my behavior specifically.
Yeah.
So, and that's like a big trap. I mean, the media does it already, kind of.
People do it.
Yeah, haphazardly, fortunately, right? It's incompetence in motion, as one of my favorite quotes from my former manager.
But it's also people asking, how are you? It's people asking, "Oh, you look sad."
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
people like you look worrying. Are you thinking about something?
Yeah,
That's a question I get quite a lot because when I think,
Yeah.
I lose all control over my face muscles, so I look really, really strict and stern, and it frightens people.
Yeah,
So
you can see us think.
You
It's
can-
like
yeah,
there's, unfortunately, there's no progress bar, but it's definitely happening.
but calm technology and ambient intelligence—that's a nice combination.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's the. But in the end, isn't that what society is? A form of ambient technology. I always think of big companies, and I happen to work at a rather large corporation, as an organism in itself, right? I mean, it is a form of ambient intelligence.
Definitely. Although the players don't really realize they are like nodes in a machine.
Yeah. Or an organism.
Or an organism. Like, are you food or are you like a functional part? Or And I don't think like the humans don't think about themselves in such a manner.
Yeah. And maybe to prevent the also going schizophrenic at large scale, we should start thinking about it. Maybe this is a wake-up call. Actually, the reason why we have these kind of chats, in this case with a microphone present, is exactly having these discussions.
Right. Yeah, and I think so too. I mean, we should be aware of the things are happening without stepping into like putting our tinfoil hats on. I think just a study of people dealing with technology or dealing with like a changing world.
Yeah.
Is quite interesting, right? It's like, so how do you decide, and how can I, for example, and specifically with decision making in companies, I feel like how can I validate the fidelity of your answer or instruction or question? You know, what is the true intent behind it, or what is did you do your homework?
Yeah. And what homework?
Exactly, and I mean, like in a year ago or something, there was this big trend of biases. Everybody was talking about biases, specifically in the UX world and the CX world, customer experience, user experience for the people at home. And people were thinking about doing research and learning how people use objects, information systems, and stuff like that. And they tried to understand why they behaved like that. Yeah. And they found out that their own view and perspective on the world was really steering the outcome of those researches, because they were the filter of the information, if you will.
It's biology.
Yeah. And they tried, and the bottom line was they tried to construct themselves all kinds of methods and I don't know. Yeah, I guess methods and restrictions to prevent biases from leaking into their judgment, which is on the one side, it's like, oh, that's quite wholesome, right? Like disqualify yourself and making sure everything is pure and open as possible. But at the same time, you are there for a specific reason as an expert or as a filter.
Yeah, and of course, there's also bias in you removing bias from your interaction.
Exactly,
right? So
because what's left? Yeah,
I mean, you just take it. Yeah, I think that's. Yeah. But I mean, in the end, all biases, I guess, assume. So that's my mental model. Right? I mean, it's because in the end, you're continuously projecting from your past experiences going forward, right? What worked in the past, what will work in the future and in the near future, and that helps you see things. It also helps you not see things or unsee things. I think in the end, it's the awareness that the model you use, right? Yeah. In the end, is useful in certain conditions. It might very well be a liability in others. So try another model. Right. So maybe that's the trick. That's the knee-jerk reaction you almost have to apply. Let's try another model. Let's see if we what we're going to see and not see then.
And continue learning, basically saying,
Yeah.
okay, we learned a thing, but this is definitely not the only thing that we learn. The only thing to learn in the future.
And experience different things, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're projecting forward and your whole training base of experience is one and the same thing, you will be rather uniform in your actions going forward.
Yeah.
If you have a lot of diverse experiences in diverse situations with diverse people, you tend to, the chance that you pick this unique previous experience that is ultimately fit for this situation is much better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
and to
true.
me, that's the ultimate reason why diversity should be practiced. It's it's almost like a guarantee for my future actions, not for my current action.
And so diversity, you mean in the hiring and firing of people, or right.
Working with people, the things you do, the things you don't do, the people you hire, the people you don't hire.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of people, once again, specifically in the digital design world, where inclusivity seems to be like a topic on itself, and I try to stay away from that discussion because I might be in a privileged or let's see a specific situation because of my physiology and my experience and stuff and my wealth. So I was really struggling about can I actually join the diversity conversation at all?
Yeah.
And specifically from the company and from the company perspective, I decided on saying just this. If you broaden the amount of kinds of people in the organization, it will give you a broader perspective on the world.
Yeah.
It is a recipe to maximize the chances of you making an interesting product and making interesting and better, higher fidelity services as well.
Especially in uncertain circumstances.
Exactly. And I feel like, for example, in a design company, this is totally what you want.
Yeah.
And so I started to ask the people that did the hiring for the designs, like, stop hiring yourself.
Yeah.
And start hiring people you are afraid of or that you have doubts about or you feel like you don't understand or are interested about. I mean, that's probably the most healthy.
There is this great quote from Groucho Marx, right? I wouldn't want to be part of a club that would invite me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing.
In like the recent past, I was applying for all kinds of functions, and one reply was, "We already have a Peet." And I said, "Dude, I totally understand you don't want two of me." But on the other hand, it was like, you can tell in like 40 minutes that this is like a specific package. I mean, I can imagine, of course, but oh boy, I was kind of like angry about it as well.
Apparently I always go back to film quotes, right? So we already have a Peet. It's like the Holy Grail. We already have one.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? We don't need a Holy Grail. We already have one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's... but I feel like, so I'm trying to retrace our path back to the rabbit. And I think in the end, I don't feel like I need to buy the rabbit. I think I kind of get it, what it does. Although I like to play with it, but I think it's
that's it.
It will be overtaken pretty fast by other devices.
Oh yeah, I mean, and this thing will bump massively. I mean, the whole economic model doesn't make any sense.
At all, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you pay $200, but it runs in the cloud, so you have ongoing operational expenses. How are you going to pay for those if you just pay $200 upfront? So no, I mean,
there should be some kind of subscription, and then a subscription for what?
Yeah,
to talk to the other subscriptions.
No, so Rabbit, the company, just felt like one big exercise to Apple, Google, or Meta. Please acquire us.
Yeah. That's interesting.
This was just one big job application, I think. Thought, and it could be wrong.
I think it's an experiment. I think because I've heard that the founder or one of the CEOs or the higher-ups at Teenage Engineering are also in the boards of director of Rabbit.
Yeah, I can see that.
And so it was a given that they will be involved with the production of the service. And I think so it felt very deliberate right? We want to make a specific thing that's marketed very well,
I mean, indeed,
but still silly. It is very silly.
Very deliberate, but deliberate for what? To me, it felt like hire us.
Yeah, it could be an IPO or buy-up or something, or perhaps like the Tesla deliberate, right? It's not per se making a product, but pushing everything to the EV space.
I mean, the Roadster was unprofitable, I guess. The first one.
I think the second model was unprofitable as well.
Yeah, but indeed, right? I mean, the whole path to the iPhone is littered with devices that were directionally correct.
Definitely.
But didn't make sense. So, I mean, so I want to have that device because I want to have devices. And I just want to experience it.
Now I want you to have the device as well.
It's but I think that the path forward for what AI will unlock in interface design beyond the chatbot.
Yeah, so the ramifications in our society and behavior of technology-driven people, but probably also what does it do with people that are not privy to such technology?
Yeah,
right.
Indeed.
Because that's kind of the things that we're still dealing with it, right? The disappearance of the bank offices is a big thing that we might disqualify because we all pin and chip and dip and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But the people that are not privy through limitations mentally or emotionally or whatever kind of the thing they're dealing with, which is quite a big group. They still expect some alternative to the office to appear.
Yeah, well, but maybe, and that's the optimist speaking, right? I mean, it's the I'm internal optimist. This whole calm technology and especially ambient intelligence, when it's freed from a specific form factor,
right?
So there is a great opportunity or chance or promise or invite even, to find form factors, and in the end, a bank branch is a form factor as far as I'm concerned. Is to find form factors that work for a much larger population, even all parts of population. See, I'm an optimist.
Yeah, and also the functions. I mean, people will see each other more frequent and say, for example, in the post office, you see the same people and you think, oh, that's that dude or that lady with the children and the kittens, and you start talking about that. And there's also a true social function of perhaps haphazardly, but still, and not intentionally, but still it happened. Yeah, and now it's broken. So,
I once said at a presentation with a bit of drama, and I said that AI is fundamentally humane.
So how do you mean?
Yeah, nobody asked me back then, so I was really happy about that. No, I think, I mean, if
humane as in friendly or empathic towards people? Or?
No, very inherent to being a human. It, I mean, it sounds like a human, right? I mean, it's all it's where it is wrong is actually where humans go wrong.
Sure,
it's the way you interact with it, right? I mean, for instance, the chatting, but also the just talking to a thing, and you expect things to happen, and you have a certain tolerance when it doesn't quite happen. Okay, maybe do this, so this. So the whole way we're dealing with this technology is fundamentally different from computer says no.
Right, so from a very, how do you call it, straightforward and strict interface, you say the interface is actually broadening and being, how do you call that system that it looks like the things in reality? Oh man!
What anthropomorphic? No,
anthropomorphic, exactly. So the little folders on your computer looks like manila folders in real time. I mean, in the real world.
I mean, so one of the hacks in actually getting a good output of a ChatGPT is saying, "Try harder."
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean,
try harder is not something I would say normally to my computer. Try harder.
Yeah, exactly.
To Excel, try harder.
Yeah.
I know you say try harder.
But what does it do? Does it try again, or does it actually up the fidelity?
That's it. Apparently, that's a phrase in whatever form you can actually say to that. It actually, also, the thing that apparently in December, the answers were more lackluster because the thinking is, because nobody actually knows how these things work. That's the people that made them, right? But
that's an interesting topic. Let's
bookmark
bookmark that.
Okay, I'm gonna keep this one as my bookmark.
Yeah.
But apparently is that ChatGPT has more lackluster answers in December, because in general in December people are gearing towards the holidays, and their utterances in text or visuals on the internet are also more lackluster.
So they mirror the input.
Nostalgia in, nostalgia out. I mean, this is a very human
trait.
A human trait. I mean, that's
but you would say, for example, let's say it represents a brand. You don't want that at all.
No.
Right? You want something that's uplifting or even counter to the emotion of the times.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's weird. That's interesting how it works. So about let's bookmark that.
Yeah.
So about the explanational or how AIs might be explainable, right? So the things that you expect, that does it have the same fidelity? Is it truthful? Does it also connect 100% with my expectations? And the expectations are never expressed.
Yeah.
So these things are kind of like left in the wayside, I feel like, right?
Yeah.
So we've been running with a AI that produces more and more higher quality stuff, or at least we feel like this doesn't look like something I could come up with myself.
Yeah.
And it's worded in a way that I find useful.
Yeah, useful.
But at the same time, we don't know how it came about that answer, what kind of sources it used, or even if those sources were old or perhaps even experimental or truthful on itself.
Yeah.
And so I went to this AI conference, and it's talked about AI could not be trusted with like tier 3 activities. So these are life-threatening or life-involving actions until it can explain itself.
Yeah.
And then I'm not talking about backtracing, but that it can prove that the things that it says is also is an actual answer to what you need.
And this technology fundamentally can't.
Exactly. And it's so I'm wondering what it is. It might be like the cycles that it costs, like the amounts of energy.
No,
it's
inherent in the technology.
It's just fuzzy
architecture. Yeah. It's the because there is no symbolic logic, there is no reasoning, right? So when you when you ask it, the distance between, let's say, Amsterdam and Berlin, you get an answer that produces a distance consisting of 3 digits. In kilometers. Why? Well, because generally on the internet, if you look up the distance between Amsterdam and Berlin, you see text that uses 3 digits. So what you get is an answer that has 3 digits in it. Not the 3 digits in the proper order.
Oh, okay.
So because there is no knowledge about Amsterdam or Berlin as being cities.
So it doesn't understand concepts.
There is no understanding of the concept of city. That a city has a position on planet Earth, and that with 2 positions on planet Earth, you can calculate this thing called distance.
Right.
All that reasoning doesn't exist. It literally is reproducing a piece of text that looks like the actual answer would have looked like. Notice the interaction, right? Would have looked like.
Yeah, exactly.
So
so it gives you something that looks useful.
Yeah.
But if it's really useful, is still up in the air.
It's up to you to design whether it's useful.
Yeah.
So, for instance, another example, if I can, right? I mean, I'm a big fan of Benedict Evans. That's an analyst/consultant. He writes a really nice
link in the show notes.
Links in the show notes, absolutely. I'm subscribing to his newsletter for like 15 or 14 years. It's hilarious. And he tried ChatGPT to come up. So he is a rather well-known-ish person on the internet. Right?
Sure.
He exists. And he asked ChatGPT about his resume.
Right.
His CV. And he got a CV about where he went to school, for what investment company he worked with, what consultancy, what books he wrote. All of that was wrong, literally. But it's totally fitting for somebody like him. Somebody like him would have done this kind of MBA course. Somebody like him would have worked at this kind of investment bank. Somebody like him would have wrote this kind of book.
So it's photorealistic, but not realistic.
It's not realistic. It's
like it looks like a man, but it isn't.
It isn't. But if that man would exist, this is how it would look like. It's a bit like I forgot the artist. He makes paintings of alien life forms.
Right. I don't know him.
Now, link in show notes. I mean, and of course,
I wonder who does all that work.
Yeah, it's really great. He comes up with these life forms, right? And they don't look like us, and with limbs, but really different.
Yeah.
Do these aliens exist? No, but they could have been.
Yeah.
There might be a planet.
They might exist. We don't know.
They might exist. They might be giants. That kind of thing. So, but this is the same thing, and this is fascinating technology. And so we never had something like this.
Right. And do you think it's driven by probability as well? So
absolutely.
So, and does it wait until we find it probable enough, or do you think it has a mechanism to say, well, this is like the threshold that we need to hit for our consumers to actually believe it?
You can add these things, but you can always spoof it. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, because in the end, hallucination is by the way, the greatest marketing term ever.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's bugs.
Yeah.
It gives you false information.
Yeah, well, or
it's broken.
You could also say it's a feature. This is what it does.
Sure. Yeah.
So when ChatGPT came out, GPT-4,
yes,
in the New York Times, a review by a good technology journalist.
Sure.
And the byline was, well, it's nice, but it still makes things up. People. It makes things up for a living.
Yeah, it's the main feature, right?
That's what it does.
Yeah.
It's the only thing it does. It makes things up.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's so close to reality that you say it's true. Sometimes it's useful. Right, I can actually ask it, give me a description of an alien on a planet that has 5 times our gravity.
Sure.
And you get something. Could be true.
Yeah.
I can use this in my new science fiction novel.
Yeah.
Link in show notes. No. It's
we're selling a book as well.
It's the
it's just a model book.
It's the and I think that's the fascination with AI from my side, and that's the fascination.
Yeah, that's interesting.
With devices that manifest AI in our lives.
Yeah, I really fear for the adaptive capabilities of people to deal with.
Oh yeah, that's it.
I mean, we just came out of whether or not you believe it or it's actually statistically relevant or not. But we just came out of a period where everybody said fake news and misinformation.
Yeah.
From my point of view, it always existed just for people just being badly informed, right?
Yeah.
They informed themselves badly, or they did the telephone game and they just misrepeated stuff and information and stuff like that. So I think it happens all the time. But now it became like there are people or institutions or organs that are actually creating dissonance through misinformation. They create new wrong information. And I feel like people are very, very badly equipped to deal with photorealistic information.
Yeah.
It looks good.
Yeah.
It looks useful. It looks like it's something I can base my opinions or actions upon. But is it really? And I would say, could you imagine that if the intent is, let's say the intent is not malice, but the intent is it's good enough.
Yeah.
It would change our society.
Yeah, sure. And I think that's the big question. Are we able to cope with this?
Yeah.
And if so, how?
Yeah.
Right? Or is it fundamentally impossible for us to deal with things that look real but are not, right? Because what you said, I mean, misinformation, etc., that existed, but not at this scale.
Yeah.
I mean, we have 5 billion people connected to the internet, potentially with each other.
Yeah.
I mean, we never had a tribe of people or a family, if you want, of 5 billion people.
True.
Right?
But I mean, like the change in our society is also like a similar thing, right? It's not technology, but it is definitely like a big change. And the only thing with technology it introduces like a new player.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a player that you don't know, that you
Yeah.
don't know,
Yeah.
that you can't use the standard interfaces of like a fist or dialogue or looking at your micro impression or micro expressions to see whether or not it is something you can trust.
Yeah, but now in front of an audience of potentially 5 billion people.
Yeah, exactly. So the scale is also
actually,
huge.
I think that's the thing. I mean, the scale is different.
Yeah.
I mean, all these things and copying things and plagiarism. I mean, that all existed.
Yeah.
Just not at this scale.
Right.
And the question is that really then different? I think it is. And are we able to cope? And if so, how?
Yeah.
Well, we don't know, but thankfully, there's a podcast about this one.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Or at least that's the whole intention of our discussions.
Definitely. Yeah. It's just a discovery. And I think along the way, we'll probably also read into like the things that we discussed right now. Let's put a little bow in this because I think this is a great primer. We gave some examples of how we talk about these things and how we intend to talk about the other things. And I also heard a very alarming chime in the distance of a camera that doesn't record. Fortunately, we are recording over here still. So let's wrap it up. This is just a model. The podcast. Do we call it like that, or
it's just a model?
It's just a model. I found out because the real quote from In Search of the Holy Grail is "It's only a model." But I really like it's just a model.
It's just a model.
If you like to have more information about that, go to justamodel.com. Now it's justamodel.com. You'll find all the information about us and also about the podcast and new episodes. And you can, of course, subscribe in your favorite podcast tool, so program. And that's it. Do you have anything to add?
No.
The people?
Let us know if there are topics you would like us to rant on.
Yes.
That would be kind of fun.
You can email me to IDs at itsjustamodel.com.
Yeah. And as you could see in this primer, nothing is scripted.
Nothing is prepared,
at all. And it's recorded in front of a live audience.
Yes.
That's what they say.
Yeah. Hello, Kitty.
It was wonderful. Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, me too. See you later. Ciao.